A new exhibit opened at the Museum of Fine Arts this weekend that focuses on the work of black potters in the 19th century American South. Hear Me Now. The black potters of old Edgefield, South Carolina, arrived in Boston from New York at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where it had been since this past fall. Craftsmanship is often an overlooked aspect of slavery. Hundreds of enslaved people created tens of thousands of pieces of pottery that were sold all over the country. And joining me now is Ethan Lasser. He's chair, Art of the Americas, and Jordan Cromwell, an interpretive planner with the MFA. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Ethan, you are one of three co-curators of the exhibition. Tell us about the origin of the pieces, what it took to bring them together, and there were many collaborators on this project, right?
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. This project has really been 5 years in the making, and it focuses on the western side of South Carolina, a small area called the Edgefield County, or the Edgefield District, which was and still is filled with natural clays. And in the 19th century, from about 1820 to 1860, it was the center of stoneware production across the South. And many enslaved people, hundreds of enslaved people, were making pots for the storage of food, to feed other enslaved laborers on plantations.
Now, Jordan, these pieces were made decades before the Civil War. Tell us about some of the characteristics, the glazes, the shapes, and what makes them significant.
Yes. When it comes to the pieces and how we wanted to cover them for the show, usually with certain earthenware jugs, there's a tendency to try to justify them as art pieces, and instead we wanted to think of the makers, the enslaved laborers who made these pots. We wanted to focus on those stories, and in the center of the show, we focus on Dave. Later known as David Drake, who made these like beautiful and large pots with like wonderful designs and poems that shed a light on the life of an enslaved person.
Tell us about the so-called face vessels.
Yeah, the face vessels. That was our means of trying to transcend the narrative of enslavement. Like with a lot of institutions, I feel as though we fall into the trappings of highlighting art by marginalized peoples, or usually black people, but it's usually through the lens of trauma. So with the face jugs, we decided to show art pieces that were made autonomously and were usually made by people who were free at that point. And throughout the show, we also have contemporary interventions showing that even now, the legacy of this artistic history continues and transcends the duress that it originated
Let's
from.
dig into this a little more, if I can use that phrase.
Yeah.
When most people think about enslaved labor, they think about agriculture, but this artistry is still from enslaved labor. So how do you communicate the sensitive history of this with museum visitors?
Ooh, that is a difficult question. But when we were thinking about it, we tried to sympathize, like not exactly sympathize, but put the people first, put the laborers who created it first, and not just say, oh, these are beautiful pieces, but like, what are the stories behind them? What are the lives that the makers lived? Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And Ethan, I know you've been working on this for some time. Share with us, if you would, the journey to bring this to the MFA and what it means to you to see this in this museum here in Boston.
Yeah, many of these objects and really the story have never been shown outside of the region, outside of South Carolina. And the journey started over the course of many trips down to Edgefield to understand the landscape, to understand the way people there locally understood this history, some of whom were descendants of the potters themselves, and finding objects and researching objects, speaking, lecturing, meeting people, and eventually deciding that this regional story had to be shared more broadly, because it really is a chapter in American history, not just a story of the South.
What about the history of this speaks to you, or as a curator? What inspires you about
I came
this?
to the story through Dave. And Dave, the artist, the enslaved artist, David Drake, who signs his work, Dave, puts poems on his pots. And for me, those objects, they're giant stoneware vessels, speak about the way that creativity and humanity and human expression can persevere even under the worst and most dire circumstances.
Tell us how these pieces link the past to the present and why they matter today.
I think you'll see that in the show, where we have a lot of living contemporary artists who are making work about these objects, about the past. And really they unearth a story about a chapter in our history that feels ever more present, about writing as a form of resistance, about art making as a form of resistance, because every time Dave wrote on that pot, it was an illegal act. He was, as an enslaved person, it was not legal for him to be literate. So we think about how art making can be this form of resistance, and that's a story, I think, that has great resonance for us now.
All right, Ethan and Jordan, thank you for coming today to tell us about it.
Thank you.
Hear Me Now, the Black Potters of Old Edgefield, South Carolina will be on display at the MFA through July 9th. Make sure you go see it.